I'm 24. I don't know what I'm doing. This business is massive now. You know, we're doing 4.5 mil. I was like, what is going on? Like, this is too much.
Cool. We are back with another episode of D2C Diaries in a different setup today. We're at Ecom Live, which is really exciting.
International,
yeah, well, national. And we are here with Lucie from Hair Syrup. We are so excited to have you. I think you're a very different guest to the founders that we've had on this, and I think you have just absolutely blown up on TikTok. You're obviously on Dragons Den recently, and we're really excited to have you. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Exciting.
Cool. Well, I think let's start with just a bit of a deep dive into, firstly, what is Hair Syrup, and then we can go through maybe your journey from the start up until this point, and then we'll get into some juicy stuff in a little bit.
Okay. So Hair Syrup is obviously a TikTok viral haircare brand. I launched it sort of by accident, so there's a bit of a weird backstory behind it, but all of these products were originally and they were little DIY hair oil treatments that I would kind of hand make and use on my own hair. And then what happened was I fried my hair off, and my hair was horrendous when I was a teenager, like most teenagers do at some point. And I decided to go on a little hair care journey, spent loads of money, nothing really worked. So I was like, okay, I need to try something different. Had a look online, started getting into natural hair ingredients, natural hair products, and I thought, okay, this could be really good for me. I'll give it a try. And I basically concocted a load of natural recipes for my hair and my scalp, and they worked a million times better than any of the stuff you can actually buy off the shelf. So I thought, okay, and I used them for maybe 18 months or so, and then I made a TikTok about it on my personal page about my hair journey. And in that TikTok, I spoke about these little natural DIY remedies I was using. And then the TikTok blew up, even though I had no followers or anything. And everyone in my comment section was just asking me in this viral video, because I had like 600k views, which back then was like insane.
Yeah, $30 in TikTok.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And I'd never had I didn't have any presence on social media, so it was wild. And then everyone was just like, oh, can I buy a bottle of that off you? You know, could you sell me one of them? What's your PayPal? I just thought, what? And then I batted it away for about 6 months probably. And I just thought nothing of it. And then eventually I sort of succumbed and thought, oh, well, maybe I could make a little business out of this. I thought there was nothing for me. I had to make something. So maybe there is a gap in the market. And yeah, I was a student at the time, so didn't think anything big would ever come of it. Thought it would just be a little side hustle. And before I knew it, we were sort of everywhere. And here we are, 4-5 years later.
This episode of D2C Diaries is brought to you by Entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurial is our North Star when it comes to data-driven decisions. We've been using Entrepreneurial for probably around 4 years now, and every growth decision we make starts with Entrepreneurial. Whether it's scaling budgets, diagnosing performance trends, or providing in-depth analysis around a new product release. And it's not just dashboards. Entrepreneurial is an agent-powered intelligence platform powering faster, more confident decisions for over 35,000 brands like True Classics and Olipop. With the smartest AI agents in D2C, Entrepreneurial's AI agents are a complete game changer. Instead of wasting hours pulling manual reports or guessing what's causing drop in ROAS, the platform flags what matters before it becomes a problem and starts hindering revenue. From daily digest to deep strategic insights, Entrepreneurial doesn't just give you the numbers, it gives you the next steps. Unlocking insights humans can't find to maximize profit. Whether you're just starting out or running a 9-figure brand, this is the tool that will help you and your team see around corners and move faster. Visit triplewell.com/D2C Diaries to learn more. That's triplewhale.com/D2C Diaries, all one word, to learn more. Back to the episode. What I love about I just think what makes this so pure and almost authentic, and it's with the brands that we see just do the best. They really have that authentic founder story where the founder has a genuine problem and they create something to find the solution to their own problem. And I think that's, I assume, really been a big factor in how you've crafted that story on socials.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think yeah, I mean, the whole brand is based around my hair and my journey and my experience. So yeah, I don't think it ever would have been, but then it would never have happened if it wasn't for me and my hair, of course. But yeah, I think people really, especially during lockdown, I think it was such a strange time. And I think people they started questioning things and what they were doing and lifestyle and what they were eating and what they were putting on their skin and all of that stuff. And they became a bit suspicious and, of these kind of massive companies and wondering, do these people actually care about what they're putting in their products, what's going on my hair? And then I think I came in at just the right time because they sort of saw me as just this normal girl who had created something that actually works and they could relate to.
So interesting. My girlfriend's currently exploring loads of hair care, and she was scanning these. Do you know the Aussie shampoo? Like how bad some of those brands are. They're even the ones that are painted as like real premium in the market from like a supermarket perspective, as the ingredients, the quality of product is just absolute rock bottom.
100%, yeah.
It's such a genuine way to enter a category. We've obviously had quite a few brands on that have just gone against that incumbent and just brought like a much better product to market, which is similar to yourself.
I think like back in the day as well, there was always so much reluctance around any sort of natural product because normally they were marketed to kind of slightly more mature audience, they were more expensive, and also natural products would tend to be seen as less effective, basically. If it's not sort of lab made, then it's not doing anything. But it's actually funny because when you look into the chemistry of a lot of these things, a lot of the synthetic ingredients that get used, they are mimicking what a natural ingredient could use anyway, but they're just cheaper to produce. Yeah. Whereas, of course, if you get it from a natural source, it's always going to be more expensive. But yeah, so it is quite funny. But yeah, I think I've sort of tried to I've tried to kind of reshape the face of natural hair care and beauty in general and make it trendy, make it cool, and not just this thing that you might find in a kind of really bougie niche little independent shop somewhere that's like 50 quid for a moisturizer or something because it's 100% natural. I think I've kind of made it readily available to the masses and also made it cool, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. I think as well, it's just like the way that you've taken everyone on that journey. Like you're not trying to pretend to be something that you're not. And, people, obviously your community that you've built have almost built that connection with you, like almost like they feel like your friend, which is cool. I mean, I'd love to know, like, were you entrepreneurial growing up, or like if this hadn't come about, do you feel like you would have started another brand, or was it just because you saw that opportunity in the moment?
I think that you have to be. If I wasn't entrepreneurial, I wouldn't have seen that opportunity in that moment. I think I've spoken to a lot of people about this over the last few years, and I don't know, I always knew when I was older I'd want to own a business. I definitely have. If you sort of look at the classic traits of an entrepreneur, I definitely have them. But it's not like I'm one of those people who, I think there's definitely more authenticity around it though. And it's more, I always say fated, because it's not like I went through a catalogue of goods and thought, right, okay, how can I sell this? And crafted some sort of marketing plan around it and thought, okay, if I buy this, I can do that. It was just this genuine innovation and creation process. So yeah, I would say you probably have to be. I mean, I made the products from scratch. Everything about hair syrup is completely made from scratch. I made the formulas, the labels, the website, the social media, the name. Everything was made. It wasn't, and there was nothing to compare it to. It's not like I had any competitor brands, or it's a bit different now, but because there's so many different kind of smaller brands, but it just didn't really exist when I started it. I didn't know who to look to. I can't look at L'Oreal and think, oh, I'll use their packaging as an example, because they're just a million miles away. There was no one in between, so I just winged it. So I would say, yeah, definitely always had that in me, and it was such a difficult journey. And I say this as well, if someone was doing it now, they can probably look to someone like me, or, all of these other big brands on TikTok, Made by Mitchell, P. Louise, and they have someone to look at and say, yeah, but if I keep going, I might end up like them. But when I was doing it, there was no one to look to. So you had to have that entrepreneurialism about you because it was so hard and so difficult. You were navigating this platform no one had used before. It was brand new. The TikTok shop came along. It was a nightmare. Even people at TikTok didn't know how to work it. And the brands were just going along with it. And I think that if you didn't have that entrepreneurial spark, because it was so difficult when I was doing it, you just would have said, what's the point? Because I wasn't making loads of money. And I never thought I would make money off it. It was never about, I'm going to be a millionaire doing this. Not in a million years, whereas I feel like people now, they have that goal of where they could go. But with us, we were shooting into the dark and then it happened. So
yeah. You've almost got to do it for the, like you say, the right reasons. It's like that ikigai, isn't it? Where, you know, it's something that you're really passionate about, something that the market really needs as well. So yeah, that's interesting.
Very genuine, very authentic, which I think is an interesting trend that we're seeing across brands. A lot of the brands that are getting success and that early traction, that feels like that genuine, authentic story behind them. Well, that gives them a massive leg up. But yeah, you were very early to that trend, I feel, and early to TikTok, which is the opportunity, I guess, the arbitrage opportunity. But like you've kind of paved the way of how to execute on there. And I'm sure there's so many people now looking at your brand as like a yardstick, as inspiration. But it'd be interesting to hear like a bit about the journey beyond. Obviously started on TikTok. I'm seeing you show up on like influencers that I follow now. You've obviously gone multi-channel. Like what's the last couple of years been like in terms of that journey?
So when I started Hair Syrup, it's always going to be probably TikTok really sits at the core of it because it's such a natural fit with the brand. Like you said, it was so founder-led and there was so much authenticity and it was so... And if that video of me using the hair oil in the first place, what other platform can you show a video of you mixing some oil, putting it on your head and it goes viral and people ask to buy it? That wouldn't happen on Instagram.
So unique,
yeah. It just wouldn't happen on any other social media platform, but it did on TikTok. So it was kind of always at the core of the brand. And I neglected, especially, you know, Instagram and Facebook, stuff like that. I just completely neglected it for ages. You know, I didn't get a professional website built for God knows how long because I was just so... The money that was coming in through TikTok, I was like, oh, this is fine. It can just sustain me. But then when we started seeing problems with TikTok shop, bigger problems, and they started doing things like banning your shop, I was like, okay. And I've got staff who are relying on me, you know, every week to kind of pay them and put food on their table. And I was like, no, we're going to have to diversify here. So invested quite a lot in just traditional print media PR. Which I think is really good, help with brand credibility.
You were in PR, weren't you, before?
I did, yeah. So I worked, I did it for a year or so. I wouldn't say I was, you know, I wouldn't say I was a sort of, I don't know, I wasn't exactly a mastermind. No, I wasn't, not quite. But yeah, that's what I did. So I worked, and I did 2 internships and then I got a job. So I did that for about a year and I loved it. It was really fun. And that definitely helped me, I would say. So I always talk about, you know, I didn't have anything when I literally had an iPhone and a measuring jug when I started Hair Syrup, but I did have that as well. So what I did have was a sort of kind of an understanding, because what I did as part of the PR, not that I did it myself, you know, but they used to do a lot of things. And I remember, you know, some clients they would have a product and it would be like, how can we get this into Selfridges or how can we get it into here? So I sort of had a slight understanding of the supply chain. So that definitely helped when it came to, helped it just wrap your head around how things get sold in the world, because a lot of people, including myself, just don't know. You know, you have your Amazon parcel delivered to you and who actually spends time thinking, how did it get from A to B? But yeah, so I did a lot of media, print, press. Instagram started growing slowly but surely. TikTok was just like, before I knew I had 80k, 100k, 120, 150, and it was just going and going and going. Instagram's more of a slow burn. I've still only got like 80k followers on there now, and I've got nearly 400k on TikTok. So yeah, it's a bit mad. And then last year, we started doing Google ads, spending on Meta, just to kind of really solidify the brand's positioning across, like you said, different sales channels. And yeah, it's I remember being really shocked though, because I didn't spend any money on my accountant. Oh my God, I didn't spend any money on advertising at all. because TikTok was a different world, 3 years ago. And then suddenly it was, oh yeah, am I spending this much a day now on ads? And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, no, I've got to now because, well, do you know what? I don't know. I always think we jumped a bit too early with that myself. But anyway, conversation for another day. But yeah, and then started spending on Meta just to really kind of steady ourselves.
Yeah. Has Meta taken over TikTok in revenue for you yet?
No.
That's really impressive because I think what we see with a lot of brands that we work with is, they may have a real big spike through TikTok and that builds that initial momentum that then feeds into other platforms, search, things like that. But then, it plateaus and it's not sustainable. And then, Meta actually then takes over in terms of how it can kind of continue to scale the brand. So that's amazing to hear that that's still such a big driver for the business and it's been as consistent as it has.
I think it takes real innovation to keep TikTok consistent. It feels like it changes so frequently in terms of what works organically, what works on Shop. And I feel like that probably ties into what you said earlier about paving the way in terms of early strategy, in terms of the brand itself. I'm assuming that mindset and the fact that you've had to do that helps you figure out those changes.
100%. I mean, TikTok, look at Lucie and I, because there's only two of us, and people can't believe that only two of us do the social media. I mean, we have other people in marketing and they do some bits and pieces, but it is pretty much just Lucie and I.
You are active as well.
Yeah, we post
so
like
active.
20 times a day.
We were looking last, it's just funny, we were looking last this morning and when you'd got to Belfast you'd obviously come to Belfast yesterday. I saw 4 TikToks from just being at the airport. Which is like just shows the power of like volume on that platform as well.
Honestly, that is, and I think that's the cheat code for it, is just we're so aggressive with it, just constant bombardment all the time. And you're so right, for a lot of people, it is just you get this one viral moment and then they spend a year trying to recreate it. But with us, we're just constantly pushing out new stuff and something will land, if you throw in a million things at once, something will land.
I guess that's the follow-up to that is like, so is that intentional then? Is the strategy volume?
Yes.
Versus, because there's always this debate of like quality versus quantity. And some brands, that are more obsessed of like the brand look and things like that. They're so obsessed of like every piece of content that needs to be perfect before it goes out. It looks like from the outside that you guys are just really throwing as much as you can at it. And that volume almost creates the quality and creates the viral moments.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, TikTok, when we go there and visit them, so normally with brands on TikTok, 2025 now, if I were to kind of create a brand or if I wanted to sell t-shirts or something, most brands on TikTok are going to be generating around 80% of their revenue through affiliates. So it's a very hands-off experience. It's like you get your products, as long as you've got a good margin, get it out to influencers and they drive you 80% of your sales. That's someone else to other people, which for me is wild. And, that for us, it constantly sits under 20%. And we'll go in there and they're saying, this week, 90% of your revenue on TikTok has come from your videos. And they can't understand how we're cheating the system because they're like, how are you doing that? And we're like, well, I don't know. Because we use affiliates and stuff, but it is our content and it's a lot of money that our content is 90% solely responsible for driving. And I just think that, I'm a sucker for it. You see someone with a little shoppable link and they're selling something for a tenner and you think, oh, okay, I'll give that a
We've
buy.
all done it.
We've all done it.
We've all done it.
Many times.
Is that ever the same as with... it's certainly an easier way to run a business. I envy anyone who does that. But, is that ever kind of really the same as, Lucie and I, we've almost become these, I don't even know what word, these sort of TikTok.
It's a community almost. I feel like it's a community that really like look out for your content, want to engage with your content, go to your page for who you are, not just the products. And then obviously there's a monetization mechanism behind that, and it feels like that what the channel is for you. It's probably hard for people to manufacture that, and that's why that TikTok are probably a bit mind blown by it.
Yeah,
I think that like the personality side is also really important. I think both of you together really bounce off each other. Lucie's behind the camera here, who like leads obviously the organic social side internally, but like I think that's important as well, isn't it? Like and that's the difficulty for some founders. I think your unfair advantage is that, one, you're both so ahead of the curve in terms of like trends and just how to speak to that audience. But then also just that personality is important to get that connection with the customer.
Do you know what? Honestly, I think you've hit the nail on the head. And people do say, TikTok say, they actually will say to us, what is your secret sauce? And I think it is just Lucie and I, and the way that we blend together. And it's really funny because when Lucie started working for me, we barely spoke for about 4 months, right? And I'm never one for a slow, talk about like slow burner relationships.
Yeah.
I've always said no, like I'm always a very kind of, when you know, and friends and relationships. And this has completely changed my perspective because Lucie and I barely spoke, and I was never in the office, never saw her really. And she sort of, I'd email her and I'd instruct her, but we weren't that close. And then suddenly, I think it was sort of late last year, September time, we just became really good friends.
What was the spark?
We went to a festival and saw each other there. And we were dancing, having a good
Few
time.
drinks.
Few drinks.
Always helps.
That always helps.
Breaks the barriers down, doesn't it?
Dutch courage. And it was sort of that moment of Lucie was like, so I actually think we could be friends. And I was like,
did we just become best friends?
No, it literally was. And I was like, okay. We're very like black cat, golden retriever energy. And I was like, okay. And then anyway, as time's gone on, so then we started working super, super closely together. So Lucie would come to things with me and we'd do, I'd invite her and we'd do content days and stuff. And then we sort of realised, God, we got loads in common, like on a personal level. And then people started picking up on the fact that Lucie and I sound similar. So we've got similar accents, similar voices. People say we look similar, but they're like, Lucie had comments on the video, oh my gosh, you've dyed your hair blonde. Or since when did Lucie Palmer dye her hair dark? And then, of course, the classic thing is we've got the same name. So it was the two Lucies. But I think it's just this, and it was completely natural. And we can see, and no shade or hate, because like it's fair enough, but we see other brands trying to do what we're doing. And I'm like, if only you knew. I didn't go out there going, right, I'm going to find someone with the same name as me, who looks vaguely similar to me, who's the same height as me, who has got the same sense of humour to me, who's got the same content style to me. Like, I didn't engineer any of this. It just sort of naturally fell into place. And I think business owners, when they try and do things that other people are doing, I just feel like, oh my God, you're probably missing out on your own genius little golden nugget. Because you've probably got something and now you're trying to do something else.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like people always look outwards rather than really taking a step back and looking inwards of like, what is our unique competitive advantage as a brand?
Unfair advantage.
We talk a lot about that.
Oh
Like,
my
is
God,
it the story?
100%.
Is it there's so many different things it can be. Is it a personality? All of those things.
Do you know, I've got a list in my office, right? And I did this probably around September time, actually. And I've got a list in my office, and that's exactly right, looking outward instead of inwards. And my list, again, I didn't consciously realise I was doing this, but I remember thinking to myself, what makes hair syrup and me different to other people? And I've got the most random things on my list. I've got things like my dad, because everyone on TikTok loves my dad. I was like, my brother's a professional rugby player, like all these really personal things that people actually really care about and are actually really interested in. And like I said, when I see other brands like look to us and try and do, I think, well, you cannot duplicate us as people. You can try and make content and say, but you've probably got something really special that you would go viral about, but you're so busy trying to be like Lucie and Lucie or trying to do something that we're doing that you're completely missing, and it's never going to be the same. You might get, there's formulas with content, and they look at our formulas, break it down. Okay, this is how they hook it. This is what they do. Blah 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 blah. But where's that actually getting you? And the thing is, with our content style, is because it's so erratic. Like you said, there's no method to it, so it's really hard for people to catch up because we're just dodging here, there, and everywhere. And we're in Belfast Airport, and you've got 4 TikToks. People go, God, I got to go to Belfast Airport now and make 4 TikToks. So it's like people can't keep up. Yeah, exactly. And we're just doing whatever, whenever. So yeah, we're very much in our own lane. And when people say, how are you guys smashing it so much? I'm just saying to people, just be yourself. Don't look at us and go, they're doing so well, I need to do what they're doing. No, because it won't work.
Yeah.
But if you do what you're doing, then you'll probably be in the same boat as Lucie and I.
You're seeing this more and more now with brands, and it's almost like you've got characters, don't you, that are almost part of that story. So it's great to see that come through. But yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, is it how prepped and planned is that, or is that just very ad hoc, kind of take it week by week and in the moment, almost just document, not create in a way? But what does that work for brands that want to, let's say they've found what their thing is and they've looked inwards? What advice do you have in terms of like how they are able to drive as much volume as you guys are? Like, do you have a form of structure in place where you have a social sync every week? What does that look like?
We have content pillars, which I think are really handy and really simple. We do a lot of batch filming. So as much as we do, like you said, it's more like a documenting, we film ourselves when we're in the car and, look, we're going here. But we always blend that with educational content, product-based content, story content. So we have pillars. So what I would recommend if someone's looking to do what we do in terms of the volume and the sort of aggression with how we approach TikTok is get really clear about your pillars. So we do trend-led, behind the scenes, product-based, ingredient-based. We really kind of find out what our audience are interested in, what a new audience might be interested in. And then anything else that we do is just supplementary. But we have got our kind of core content. If you look through our videos, it seems erratic and crazy, but we have actually got themes.
I knew there would be.
Yeah, underpinning. There are always themes there.
It's like the trends are almost what captures people at the top of the funnel, brings them in because they get more reach, and then you can start nurturing them through the education and the storytelling to kind of then get them to the point to convert.
That's exactly what we do, and that was a strategy with Dragons Den especially. And when we had a really viral campaign for April Fools. And the strategy was always going to be, we know that we're going to have loads of traffic. So as soon as that traffic's in, hit them with the educational content, how to use, tutorials, and that's where you're going to get people converting. But it's not where you're going to hook people. Yeah. But there's kind of phases to it. We always think of it like that anyway.
I think that's what we speak about when we're speaking about ad content as well. You've got that like unaware, very top of funnel. Like, how do you just get someone interested in watching a video, taking an action, clicking on something, and then it's how do you walk them through like the product features, the product benefits, the objections that people have. Do they tend to convert better? I assume that's those kind of videos versus, I assume, are the ones that drive the majority of the sales from an organic perspective.
So which ones do you mean now?
The more like framework, pre-prepared pieces of content.
In terms of ads?
Both, I guess.
Well, we do a mix. So through our ad strategy, we do a mix of, we'll do organic and we do kind of educational stuff through the ads. And you see results can be really random on ads, to be honest. It's really difficult but they do that. My ads agency, they have a structure. I don't know what platform they do it on or whatever. It sounds way too complicated for me. But they will use hi, my name's Lucie and I start, clickbait. I started a viral TikTok brand from my parents' conservatory, and that'll be the first warm-up. Because people go, sounds like a story. And they'll listen to it. They might watch it for 20 seconds and go, And then the next one will be, do you want to grow your hair this summer? And then people go, actually, yeah. And then it's more salesy. And then the more you get in, the more salesy it becomes. And then we're trying to increase the AOV and trying to get those conversions. So that's kind of how we structure it. But people think it's completely random and it is, but it isn't. Yeah. There's no way that, and with brands, there's just no way you cannot just go on TikTok. I mean, maybe you can, but it's different for us because the products we're selling as well are actually, I'm not just saying this, they are actually really good. They're clinically tested. They're amazing. They've literally changed people's lives. So we're not going to completely go on social media and take the mick the whole time. because it's a disservice as well to what you're selling. There's a fine line. People tell us sometimes, you're taking it too far. But actually, if they bothered to watch the other 15 videos we'd posted that day, because they'll be like, oh, can you stop posting about silly stuff? You know, we don't care about what you had for lunch. Tell us about the product. But if you look at the last 5 videos, it's just because we post so much.
Yeah.
But if you look at the past 5, we have posted about the product. So it's a fine line.
This episode of D2C Diaries is brought to you by Well. Well is our North Star when it comes to data-driven decisions. We've been using Well for probably around 4 years now, and every growth decision we make starts with Well. Whether it's scaling budgets, diagnosing performance trends, or providing in-depth analysis around a new product release. And it's not just dashboards. Well is an agent-powered intelligence platform powering faster, more confident decisions for over 35,000 brands like True Classics and Olipop. With the smartest AI agents in D2C, Well's AI agents are a complete game changer. Instead of wasting hours pulling manual reports or guessing what's causing drop in ROAS, the platform flags what matters before it becomes a problem and starts hindering revenue. From daily digests to deep strategic insights, Well doesn't just give you the numbers, it gives you the next steps. Unlocking insights humans can't find to maximize profit. Whether you're just starting out or running a 9-figure brand, this is the tool that will help you and your team see around corners and move faster. Visit triplewell.com/D2C Diaries to learn more. That's triplewhale.com/D2C Diaries, all one word, to learn more. Back to the episode.
So, Dragons Den.
Dragons Den, yeah.
So I guess for context, you went on Dragons Den, you're looking for 190k for 3%. And this episode, I remember watching this actually at the time, and this was kind of before I actually knew about the brand. So this was my entry point into hair syrup.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so wild.
Yeah. So obviously there was a bit of a controversy within the episode, I guess, for context. Tuka offered you what you had asked for if you were able to return his money within 3 months, which essentially was, so free equity in return for his guidance and mentorship. So and then obviously the other dragons kind of pushed back and said that you shouldn't do it. And then there was this piece, and then obviously you ended up not taking it. But let's go back to the start of that. How did that come about, and what was that experience like for you?
Okay. So, oh God. They approached me and I'd always said I wouldn't apply, but if it came to me, I'm one of those people, I don't like saying no to anything, especially with work, hair syrup, even if it means, I'm running off 2 hours sleep, any opportunity, I'm just like, yes. And they emailed me one day, I think it was maybe February or something, early 2024. They're like, we've seen your brand on TikTok and we think it'd be really good for you to come on the show and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay. Thought about it for a little while. A couple of people told me not to do it, but I wanted to do it. And I knew in my gut, this is the right thing. And people were like, yeah, but you don't need the money. You don't want investment. I was like, yeah, but I want a slot on the show. So
the awareness.
I was like, and they were like, yeah, but what are you gonna, what would happen if you actually did have an investor on board? It would change the whole business. And I was like, yeah, but I already knew before this that a lot of the deals that you see on Dragons Den, they never come into fruition. They have a big due diligence process and things fall through and contracts don't get signed. So I didn't feel like I was signing my life away to anything. I was like, look, everyone, just relax. Like, I'm going to go on. We'll just see what happens. But honestly, genuinely, from my perspective, I approach, and this is how I approach most things in my life as well as my business, I just go at everything with a completely open heart. I'm like, I'm going to be open, honest, transparent, and you cannot go wrong if you do that. Yeah. I had no ill intentions. I had no plan or, it wasn't like I was trying to, again, it's that falseness, that engineering of things. People say to me now, genuinely, I'm going to go on Dragons Den and I hope I get rejected by all 6 dragons like you did, and then I'll make some funny content about it on TikTok. And I'm just like, what? Like, what do you mean you hope you get rejected by six of the dragons? Like, it was actually really horrible when that happened to me. And I was like, I didn't want that to happen. Like, obviously I wanted an offer. I wanted 2 dragons, actually. Ideally, I thought, I wanted Peter and Stephen.
Yeah, power duo. Those two.
That's who I wanted.
Peter Jones.
And it was funny because I was like, although it was like, oh, you don't need the money, I was like, yeah, but I need help. You know, the people,
the expertise, the learned experience.
Yeah,
they're such a almost a juxtaposition of like experience and where their expertise lies. Well, I can see it being a really powerful duo.
And I just thought, actually, and the closer it got, so I said yes to this, and I thought, okay, but it was actually this time last year. Oh my God, it was not a very good time in the business. A lot of stuff going on. And I had BBC ringing me every day. Oh my God, like the paperwork you have to do to get on that show, background checks, everything they're questioning, every word on your website, social media. So I was like, oh my God. And I was probably working, 70, 80 hours a week, running the company. I had loads of stuff going on in my life. And on top of that, because a lot of people go on Dragons Den, not to generalise, but they don't tend to be, they might be going on at a different stage where they've got enough money that they've been working on an invention for a few years, just sitting on it, and now they're going on Dragons Den, and they spend 3 months preparing to go on stage. And I didn't have that. I learnt my script 2 days before I went on stage. It was wild. I didn't even know how much equity and stuff I was going to be offering, and how much money I was going to be asking for. I kept changing my mind up until the last minute, and they were like, no, this has to be finalised today. So I was running around like a headless chicken, trying to sort out the paperwork, trying to get everything as it should be, whilst trying to manage what was at the time, to be honest, a complete mess of a company. It wasn't a good time for Hair Syrup or me. And then I threw that in the mix, and everyone's like, what are you doing, Lucie? Why are you going on Dragons Den? Everything's going wrong at the moment. I was like, no, it's fine. And I was like, do you know what? We need something to make us get our act in order.
Yeah.
And I was like, the company needs something. It needs some excitement, and we need something to work towards. And I was like, there's so many things that we need to sort out, so many things that need changing, and this will give us a timeline. I was like, this will be coming out on TV, because I knew it wouldn't be coming out until 2025. So I was like, okay, that gives us a deadline. No more procrastinating stuff. And, everyone was like, what are you doing? Basically thought it was quite selfish that I was just waltzing off, putting us on national TV when everyone's like, we're not in a position to be going on national TV, and potentially, I was like, no, I'll be fine. And
Can
then
you touch on that at all? What was going on at the time of the business?
So many different things. We had 3 different, we were operating out of we had 3 different leases going on. So we were spread across all these different spaces, warehouses. So the business was kind of split. Oh my God, we had problems with stock, cash flow issues. We could not find a warehouse, because obviously we're in Pembrokeshire, South West Wales. Not that many industrial estates to choose from. We could not find a warehouse to house Hair Syrup. It was impossible. We were trying to do a rebrand. I didn't like the new packaging. We were having problems in our supply chain, problems with staff. It was just an absolute nightmare. And it just felt like, not to ever play a sob story or a victim, but it did just feel like everyone was sort of out to get me. And that I had a lot of people around me who could see that I was not okay and down, and were either taking advantage of that or kicking me and making it sort of worse. And I was just like, oh my God, I just need some help. And I think that's another reason why the Dragons became more appealing to me. So I was like, I'm 24. I don't know what I'm doing. This business is massive now. We were doing 4.5 mil. I was like, what is going on? Like, this is too much. But then I just decided to crack on and said, no, I'm going to do it. And everyone's like, you can pull out. And I was like, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to do it. And then drove up to Manchester. And I don't really get nervous. I'm quite a confident. I did drama at school, so I don't get stage fright, don't get nervous. Yeah. But oh my God, that was another level. And then it went how it went. So
I've I know someone else who's been on Dragon's Den, and one thing they said was, obviously you only see 10, 15 minutes, but apparently you're in there getting grilled for hours.
Yeah, true.
Talk us through the day. Like,
Yeah.
what's it like? What's the setup like?
Okay, so I turned up. I had some breakfast. Get your hair and makeup done. You're there for hours. So I think I don't even remember if maybe my slot was 4:00 or something. And I think I arrived at 9 a.m. And so you get your hair and makeup done and have some food, and you're with like the welfare team and all of that stuff. And then, I got changed, got ready. You have to rehearse your script in front of a team and all this stuff. They walk you through. They show you the behind the stage. That's like, okay, this way you need to walk on. This is where you stand. You have to kind of rehearse all of that, which I didn't enjoy at all. I found that really stressful. I was like, my brain's going to explode because I had so much information to retain. Even being told, you have to remember to stand on this cross. I can't. I'm going to do it wrong. So that was really stressful. But, everyone was lovely. The team was so nice. And I met some of the other contestants, people going on there. It was really good. And then eventually it was my go. Well, it wasn't. I was absolutely terrified, and I was shaking. And if you actually rewatch, a lot of people watched it, said, oh my God, Lucie, like you were so confident. How did you do that? But if you actually watch, you can hear my voice shaking. And I actually fluffed my lines, sorry. And I had to start again.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
because... I didn't know they allowed that.
Well, I don't know, but I did. I had to.
Were you just like, we're going back?
I can't remember. I think I was just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Can I start again? But I froze and I just said something like, hi. And then I was like, oh my God, can I start again? So I think it probably just had to. So I didn't get like halfway through, but I literally said hi and didn't know what else to say. You're in this massive room and you've got all these lights on you and all these people everywhere, and it was really scary. There were 6. I always compare it, right, to, if a little kid wanted to be a professional football player and then they're in front of their favourite.
Yeah, it's good comparison.
Favourite players in the whole world trying to shoot goals for 3 hours. That's how I felt. So I look up, they're who I want to be. They are that's what I want to do when I grow. They want who I want to be when I grow up. So standing in front of them, and then it made it even worse, obviously, because I got rejected. But standing in front of them, I was starstruck as well, and I really wanted to impress them, and I wanted them to like me. Because I thought, oh yeah, you guys are so cool, and you're amazing, and I want to be like you. So I was terrified. And then anyway, I gave my talk, and they were lovely. They make out, it's called Dragons Den. They have to be these fierce, scary. They have to grill you, but they were actually so lovely. And they made some, oh my God, the comments, like the most amazing comments. But you'll never see them because I was in there for 3.5 hours. And then it was 18 minutes or something, my episode was. And I know they showed all of the really savage bits, but for those bits in between, it was like, and people have picked up, they're like, God, you just sort of lost. My brother said to me, he said, oh, you lost what happened? It was like you were doing really well, and then you just sort of bottled it. And I was like, bottled it? I said, no, the first bit was the first 10 minutes. And then the last, so say 7 minutes of the episode was of me when I was first in the den. And then it's like, it looked like I just flipped and I just lost it. But I was explaining, like, no, I'd been in there for 3.5 hours. I was exhausted. My brain didn't, I dare anyone who thinks that they could stand that pressure to go and do it themselves, because, I went in there, like I said, I was pretty clear on most things. And a lot of the questions that I got asked and got caught out on, they'd been asked like 2 hours before and I'd been fine. But then you get asked them again and it's 3.5 hours and you're standing on the stage. You don't sit down and have a cup of tea. You're standing on that stage talking for over 3 hours. It was really intense. And then, everything sort of happened how it happened. And the really dramatic bits that the viewers saw happened literally in the last few minutes before I left the stage,
What was going through your head when Tuka offered you the 3%?
So
the the 180, 190?
So everyone got, well, it was called the most controversial episode ever. And everyone got really either offended or outraged. But when it was offered, it's not a horrendously bad offer. Like a lot of mentors, real mentors, take equity for mentorship. It's really common.
Very common.
Yeah.
It's
really common.
It's just that lack of understanding of like the mechanism of business for people, I think.
But people were telling me, you don't understand business. And I was like, well, no, I do. And I know that it's very normal for mentors to offer. And actually, the reason why the Dragons didn't invest is because because on paper, what is actually wrong with hair syrup, money-wise? Nothing. You see them invest in businesses that made 600 grand loss the previous year, and you won't invest in mine. It didn't kind of make, it's not like there are any big red flags, but I wasn't at a stage where I needed or really knew what I wanted from investment. If I was to look at taking it in the next 12 months, you're very clear about what you're going to do with the money, what you need it for, what their role is going to be, how you're going to work together. And it completely changed the business. And I wasn't in the stage where I needed it. And a big thing for them, again, which people didn't see, was that they were worried about the equity release, because they were like, what's your exit? And we'd spoken about all of this. I'd spoken about my exit strategy 2 hours prior. And I had said, but, I had been honest. And I was like, look, I don't know right now. My business is it's a bit of a mess. I said, I'm nowhere near where I want to be with hair syrup. I don't know about it. I don't know when I'm going to exit because, but you could sell it for this much tomorrow. I said, yes, but I also don't want to sell it because last week I was having to pack orders because we had, 4 people off sick. We were super busy. I'm still sweeping floors and packing orders and trying to organize a rebrand. I haven't even, this packaging has been made by me for free on Canva. You're talking to me about exit. Well, I don't know, but that is what investors want to know. So the big thing for them was if this business plummets, because like they pointed out, it's reliant on TikTok. They thought I was a bit of a, bit of a maverick. They were like, are you going to get bored of this? Are you going to move on to the next, they said to me, you're going to move on to the next shiny thing. Are you just going to bail on hair syrup? And then essentially it's a lot of money, 190 grand. My money's locked in a company. I can't, and then what? If you just let it go into liquidation, basically what would happen to my money? And they wanted to know that I had the cash and that, so when I was like, yeah, of course I can pay you back, it was more that, yes, of course I have that cash. Yeah. But it came across as that he was stealing from me, but that's not really how it was said.
What is strange is, because, like we said, that is a common thing that you see in business all the time. But the other dragon, I think what probably swayed you was the other dragon, and probably Tuka as well, was that the other dragons were almost offended by it and felt like he was almost stealing from you by their reactions, which seemed odd.
Yeah.
Well, I think the issue I think for the other dragons, it wasn't so, well, I can't speak on behalf of them, but it was more a question of, is this allowed within the show's parameters? Are you allowed to do that? Because if you are,
sets a precedent, I guess.
Yeah,
everyone
it's a loophole almost.
Exactly.
Sets a precedent for future shows, right? Makes
and
sense.
Also, well, if I knew I could do that,
do it all the time.
Well, of course I want a piece of this business that's doing this. Like, do you know what I mean? It was like, I think from obviously I have to be selective about what I say, but I think it was more of a concern around, hang on a minute, like you said, what's this trick?
Yeah.
And he was
smart.
Very
smart.
He was so smug about it because he was like, he says at the end, well, you all wanted to slice the pie, but you were worried about how to get your money out. I think he even showed this in the episode. It's like, you were worried about getting your money out. He's like, I came up with a solution. So I think, there's a lot of kind of friendly competition between the dragons.
A bit of ego. Yeah. A bit of friendly ego going
and
on.
he'd come along and they were like, what? Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. You can't do that. And then, and then that was sort of that. But like I said, I have to be selective about what I say about it. But at the time, I was like, Stephen was like looking at me, shaking his head. And I was like this. Honestly, I was a rabbit in a headlights. They were all arguing. And I was just standing on stage. And I was like, I kept apologising because I kept saying, have I started this? And I felt really bad. I was like, I've done something. I've caused a big problem. They were like, no, you haven't. And I was like, okay. And I was really, it was quite a crazy experience, to be honest. But that is what actually happened with that 3%. It wasn't necessarily, the people's interpretations of it was not necessarily a correct reflection 100%. Of what actually happened.
Yeah, a lot of mentors would take equity with no payback for guidance when it's like very, very. We've looked into it, I think I would encourage people to look into that if they can find the right person to do that deal with, who can add like real tangible value to the business for a small percentage. It was just framed in a very different, just framed differently, wasn't it, to the public?
Yeah, there's so many learnings in that, like all of the failures they've gone through. You can just apply those learnings directly into your business and help fast track its growth.
But yeah, it's interesting to think about I guess when you were saying about the exit plan, like what the investors want is certainty, don't they? They want certainty and a plan. And if you're not 100% clear on that, I almost think that's one of the biggest turn-offs when you're presenting to investors, is they want you to be so regimented. It's like, this is what's going to happen and this is what the point at which you're going to get your money back. So,
I mean, if I were to raise in the next 12 months, it doesn't happen how it happens on Dragons Den anyway.
No.
I did not feel like, I'm not stupid, despite the way that, you get portrayed on TV shows. If I was going to raise, the conversations don't happen like that anyway. No. It's not, you're not fighting for your life. It doesn't happen like that, And I would have, of course, if I do in the next 12 months, it's not going to be me standing on a stage with 20 million cameras in front of me and lights and no, like you're sitting down. It's a negotiation, it's a conversation, it's an offering rather than whatever happens on TV.
I think you'd have people biting your hands off as well.
Of course, and I do. I get every week. I get
VCs, everybody would want a piece of the pie.
Every week, yeah. And I'm also now, again, if I did raise, I'm going to take investment from people within the beauty space, not just random
entrepreneurs, I guess.
Yeah, or VCs. Like I want people, and I've got offers from people. So, but I think it's funny when, as well, like you were saying about mentorship and people take, like, everyone, 99% of the time, nobody does anything for nothing, especially a prolonged, why should anyone just give you, you know what I mean? Why anything for...
Especially someone like those, especially with that sort of experience, and their time is valuable.
100%.
That's just the mechanism of how the market works, really, isn't it? So I think for sure, like, you've got to exchange something for that.
They made it very clear to me as well. I don't know, I can't remember what they showed on the thing, but Peter Jones was like, I'm not running your company for you, Lucie. And it's really funny because he said to me, he was like, you want to be lying back in Barbados, sipping a cocktail, smoking a cigar and relaxing whilst I'm making your business really big. And he was like, but I'm the one who was lying on a beach in Barbados, and that's what I want to be doing. And he was like, I'm not doing that for you. I was like, okay. But he was right. I thought, I'd get someone like that on board. And I was just naive. I just didn't really know what I was wanting. But Dragons Den as a show sort of presents itself as being the answer to any business owner's dreams. You get that and great, you're off. And I never really saw it as kind of normal investment. I saw it more from that angle.
What was the business impact of going on the show? Because I've been to an event where Ben Gallagher was talking about how he obviously Lux Collective saw a massive spike post Dragons Den, and then sort of a bit of a drop off after that. What was your kind of experience of that coming out of being on the show?
So we saw an immediate, straight after being on the show, obviously an immediate 66% sales increase. And that's only, it got aired 31st of January, and that's only gone down to 60%. So it's been really good for us.
I think as well, though, like what probably a lot of brands do when they don't do when they go on the show compared to what you did, like it looked like there was quite an intentional strategy there for when the show launched and how you use that. And I also just think the way that you lent into, the idea of not getting an offer off the back of it. Your bio on TikTok, is it Dragons Den Reject and stuff like that. Talk a bit about the strategy and the thought process there for when the show launched.
So it was fairly simple. I'd been rejected by all 6 dragons on national TV. Everyone's going to know about it. Everyone's going to see it. I can either hide from it
or lean in.
I can either... this has happened now, so I thought, well, there's no getting away from this. I said to BBC, please don't air it. Please don't air it. And they were like, sorry, you signed a contract. I was like, no! And then I was like, okay, this is happening, so let's get used to it. And then when Lucie and I spoke about it, when we got a launch date and stuff, and it was very much this kind of moment between the two of us where Lucie said, nah, this is going to be really funny. We can really play on this. She was like, it's really iconic, actually. You got rejected. She said, has anyone, I was like, salt in the wounds. Has anyone else ever had 6 rejects? Because you got all 6. I said, yeah, Lucie, I know. No, like all of them. I was like, yeah. She's like, that's actually quite iconic. I said, is it? She was like, yeah. She was like, you're this viral TikTok brand. And she was like, they don't get it. They don't get us, Yeah. And we can and I was like, oh, do you know what? So I was like, yeah, actually, it is quite funny. It's like, yeah. And then we just brainstormed about it for quite a few months, and we had all these drafts, and BBC were like, you can't post, they were like, you can't post this, can't post that. So we had all these funny drafts, and we decided that we would do a mild trolling of the dragons. I did let their PR agencies know in advance we were planning on doing that. But yeah, we gave them a kind of mild, we did this really funny video, right, where Tuka Suleiman had... Sorry, this is so funny. He had made a TikTok of a day in the life, and he was like, oh, this is my day in the life. And he said something like, in the morning, I eat my fruit and my yogurt. And then for lunch, and then he said something like berries, and then he said, and then for the dinner, platter. And we'd taken that sound and voiced it over, because we had all these clips of a photo shoot we'd done where you had like hair syrup with berries and we had because we did, we've got rosemary oil, so we had like a rosemary focaccia. And he said, I'll have a sandwich, some bread. So we were like cutting the bread. And honestly, it was just, and it fit so perfect. And then platter, there was like this platter of hair syrup all laid out on a brown board with all these fruit around it. And it was just so funny. And we went on their TikTok, Sarah Davies, all of them, Stephen, and we were like, oh my God, look at all these funny things. Sarah Davies made a video about hair growth or greasy hair or something. And I was like, no, she hasn't made a video about looking for a hair growth product. I was like, no, this is too tempting. So we just went all in from all angles. Really yeah. We were like, we can joke with them. It was playful. It wasn't offensive or degrading or anything. It was playful. We laughed at ourselves the most, more than anything. We did a lot of memes, we did the Chelsea Liart. That was my personal favourite. Do you guys know Chelsea Liart?
No.
Oh, God. Brain rot TikTok. So she's, that was, people went mad for that one because she had this viral sound, and it was, and then I did a voiceover, and then I stitched myself walking off. So that was really, really good. And then what else did we do? Oh, and then the next thing that came was the kind of, this was more came from our audience though, rather than from us, because we were just like, right, let's just make a joke about it. I've lost, like I'm a loser here. I haven't got any investment. I've been rejected. Let's just make a big joke about it. So we made a lot of memes, playfully toyed with the dragons. We were like, you trolled me on TV, I'll troll you on TikTok, blah, blah, blah. And then we got this comment from someone and it said, oh my gosh, I saw a few weeks ago that you were you'd been teased that you were going on, Dragons Den. And she was like, oh, I was actually quite gutted. She said, because I was so happy for you when you got into Boots. And then she was like, oh, and then it felt like, oh, she's got into Boots because she went on Dragons Den and has taken an investment from one of them. And of course, when people realised, because 2024 was a really difficult year, the first half, and then it sort of got significantly better, we had huge milestones in the later half of 2024. So we decided then what we wanted to do was we mixed up this humorous content, the kind of playful, taking the mick, with then this sort of comeback era content where it was like, you rejected me, but look what happened 4 months later. I'm on the shelves of Boots. You told me my brand, I made a TikTok about it. And it's like Stephen had said, my brand needs a life raft, to survive, basically. And then we sort of really leaned into the community side of things. And we were like, no, actually, we've managed to do this. We've managed to get this many orders. I've got a brand new warehouse. I launched in Boots. We've done our biggest ever Black Friday. And look at all these achievements that I've done alone. And everyone just loved it. And the community felt like, as well, they had supported that. Like every little...
It's the little guy.
Yeah, the little guy.
Exactly.
Which people love
And they do.
supporting, yeah.
And every little bottle of hair syrup they'd bought had gone one step closer. I think there's something to be said as well for, I'm not, not saying that they were horrible to me, but because they came across, like, people interpreted them as being not all that nice to me on the show. They had this perspective of... who are these, big 6 billionaires or whatever they are, really, really rich people going in on this, no. And they rallied behind me because they wanted to see me win and they didn't want, they wanted the little guy to win, basically. Yeah. And like I said, they then realised, oh my God, that 15 quid bottle of hair oil, that poor girl, she'd just been rejected. She was going through all this and that. And
has more meaning, doesn't it?
It has more meaning.
More meaning, more
100%.
impact, which is so powerful.
I think, like you say, people hate on perfection, don't they, in many ways? And I think showing that life isn't just this upward trajectory is really builds that connection with the audience, which is great. Cool. We're coming to the end now, but this has been so interesting. I would just love... One of my final questions is, you had built this, great personal brand through hair syrup. That was catapulted even further after Dragons Den. What is the hardest thing about you being the face of the brand and being in the public eye?
Oh my gosh, that's a difficult question. I think it's a lot of pressure, feeling like you're, like you said, and this comes part and parcel with the way we do our social media, sometimes like you post something and you say something slightly wrong, or you write something and people misinterpret it, or a little mistake and people are just on you, and it's there then because it's on the internet. So I think this feeling that I'm being watched. And you got so many people out there, like I hate to say it, because people say to me, oh, well, how do you get, how people mean to you? You just sell hair oils, but you just got people waiting there. And it's like this feeling that, and I will make mistakes, and I will do some stuff wrong because, I don't have 10 layers of, you hear these big brands and they say, oh, what's your authorization process for TikTok videos? And I'm just like, what? We don't have one of them.
That's the advantage, though.
It's the advantage,
Exactly.
but also means
Move
you don't.
quick.
Yeah, of course, but then you don't have those layers of protection.
Riskier,
yeah, you don't have those layers of protection of, don't use that word because people could interpret it this way, or don't say that, or don't use this, or don't write that. And we don't have any of that. But like I said, I will make mistakes. I will do things wrong. But I'd like to say I'm pretty good at holding my hands up and saying, oh, okay, yeah, sorry about that, guys. Didn't mean to didn't mean to cause any.
Owning those mistakes as well, like
100%,
yeah.
not running away from them when you do make them, which I think can turn them into a positive almost.
Yeah, and a
turn them into
learning
good
experience.
moment.
Yeah, and I'm never malicious about things, and I know that I lead in that way, so I'd never do anything intentional. And even if I did accidentally do something, I would just say I'm really sorry. But that is the problem, is it's a lot of pressure of, oh my gosh, what if I slip up, or if something happens to me or with me, and then it has the knock-on effect on the brand. But that's so true for so many businesses. I mean, look at Tesla, and it's so true. Like, if you're, as a founder, if you're mixed up with the actual brand, it's people can't.
Just more scrutiny.
And people can't separate the two. So, but that's how hair syrup is. Like I said, I could do it differently. Lots of brands do, but this is how it is.
It's your biggest strength.
It is my biggest strength, yeah. And there's things go wrong in business all the time anyway. And we're on social media, we're out there, we open ourselves up to it. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. Thank you. That was great. Really great episode. Thank you very much for sharing the experiences. Thank you for sharing the Dragons Den story.
No
it's been
problem.
a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, we're excited to see your talk later at Ecom Live.
Where can people find you?
On socials.
Yeah.
At Hair Syrup. Type in Hair Syrup, TikTok, Insta, Facebook.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.